5 o'clock. Since the chair is absent as the vice chair, I'll call this meeting to order. Steve should be joining us shortly. He's on his way. And I will ask the clerk to take the roll.
Carroll.
Here.
Schoonover.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Manning. Turk.
Here.
Frank. Severson.
Present.
Williamson. And Cooey.
Here.
And you have a quorum.
And are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting was properly noticed.
Good. We have before us a 16-point agenda. We're going to move item number 11 up to just after public comment to accommodate council who's online with us. With that note, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Schoonover, second by Carroll. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And you have before you the minutes of the January 13th meeting. Any corrections, changes needed to those January 13th minutes? Hearing none, I'll declare those approved as presented. Item number 6 is public comment. Do you have anyone from the public that wishes to comment to the committee this evening? Either here or online. Didn't get any forms ahead of time, so. All right, if there is no one, then we will.
I've got my hand raised, Chair.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is Barb Scott.
Yes, Barb.
And I'm commenting as a public figure, not as an employee at all. And I wanted to just officially thank the EMS staff that have been present and are doing amazing. We did receive a letter from the hospital today thanking us for our support and dedication to the community. And I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that letter. It was regarding several facility transfers that we've done lately. And I just wanted to mention how proud I am of the ambulance and the work that they're doing.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, so as I said, we're going to take item number 11, move it up under public comment here, so that'll be the next thing we take on. Rules, a review of rules of the county board.
So Derek and I sat down last week and reviewed the rules of the board, and there are just some things that we wanted to highlight and bring to your attention and get some input. These are things that you can change, not change, but just some things that we saw that we felt warranted some future discussion. Starting on page 3, under county board meeting agenda responsibilities, one thing that we wanted you guys to have some discussion about is the future agenda items. Typically, before something gets to county board, it goes through a standing committee, so we didn't know if it should have some language in there to talk about, a motion to place this on a standing committee agenda, or if you want to leave it as is.
Yeah, I'll do my best to share it, but I may be writing at the same time, so I'll do my best here.
Is it in my packet?
It should be
is
in
in
your
the
packet,
packet.
and it should be number, I believe it's 11.
11A.
Page 11?
No page.
It's item 11A in your packet.
Here's the cover sheet. Here's the actual rules. Yeah, 11A is the cover sheet, 11B is the actual rules document.
On page 4, under the ad hoc committees, there isn't anything that lays out to re-vote again on chair and vice chair, so we wanted to suggest adding that at that point in time. Also, under 2.04D, the chair or vice chair may fill in to get quorum. I know that we have it as the chair, but really in the absence of the chair, the vice chair can step in, so we just want to be clear that we're looking at both of them. When you go to page 6, 2.07 in county board member compensation, one thing that we would like you guys to consider is, do we want to change this to a stipend instead of a per meeting? And if you look to a stipend, I do think we need to have some verbiage in there about missing meetings. If we look to do a stipend, we do think that the board chair compensation should be increased from the $250 a month. We were looking at possibly $200 a month for a stipend, and not taking into consideration expenses, so the expenses would be part of that $200 a month that you're given, and then increasing the board chair compensation. Under section E, under expense reimbursement, we do have a finance and personnel committee, so we will need to update that to executive and finance. On board member interest form on page 7, under section 2.10, it says within 7 days after county board members are elected. We felt that we should be clarifying that once results are certified. So it's 7 days after the results are certified. On page 10, under B, board member conduct at meetings, we have RONR, and we don't define that that's Robert's Rules of Order. It's defined later in the document, so we want to make sure it's defined the first time it's mentioned in the document. On page 11, we're under the county board chair, section 3.01. We'll add that the board chair or vice chair may serve as a member with full rights and privileges of any committee if there's no quorum. Under C, because there have been some comments about the amount of committees that the board chair is on and the amount of responsibilities that the board chair is on, do we want to consider removing that he is automatically the vice chair of the executive and finance committee? We do have that the vice chair is automatically on executive and finance as the committee chair, and on committee and committees, the board chair is automatically the chair, but that might take a little responsibility, like tonight he's running this meeting. Under 4.03, remote attendance at meetings on page 12. We just wanted a little more clarification. We do have it on there that the board or committee members shall keep their camera on for the entirety of the meeting, but we also allow them to appear by telephone. Obviously, if you're by telephone, you can't have your camera on. So we just wanted a little bit of clarification on that. We also want some clarification that if the board member misses roll call when they're online, if there's a way that we can have them notice, like the administrator and the clerk, that they are on. Sometimes I feel like we're missing their attendance, so we would just want clarification on that. And that is, I think, the gist of the ones that we looked at and the items that we wanted you to consider, but we also weren't sure if there were other items that you guys wanted to consider and discuss.
Committee members. Mr. Carroll.
What was the thinking behind the change in compensation?
Well, we do a lot of chasing down of board members sometimes to pay them, and so from a staff standpoint, it is much easier to do it that way. We do think that there probably should be better compensation for board members with the amount of time, energy you're putting into this. So that's just what our thoughts were with that. We're truly fine with doing it either way, but just something we didn't think about. But it would be easier from the bookkeeping part of it.
Other committee members, as the chair is assuming his seat here.
Well, my only problem is, there's, me being new, this is the first time I've ever seen this document. And there's a lot here to go through. Is this something that we could table for the next?
Yeah, so we were hoping to have an initial discussion about it, and And then if there were items you guys wanted us to change, we can bring back the proposed changes. And really wanted your input too on our proposed changes, if you want us to build those in or if you want us to leave it as is.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Whoever's chairing now. So this was just kind of goes along with reviewing the review of that Appendix A as well, just to make sure that we're reviewing the rules. You'll all recall these were just, redone not too long ago, so we've amended them here and there in sections, but as a whole, wanted you guys just to review the documents, so if there were any changes that you wanted made, we had those made before a new governing body takes over that's not going to be as familiar with the rules and how they work procedurally and processes like that. So I would echo what Administrator Clemens said, if you're okay with us inserting those changes, proposed changes, and if there's anything else that you guys wanted at this point right now, that we could start those conversations and revisit this again, in the other executive meeting in March, but certainly before a new board is seated in April.
Mr. Mayor, question?
Go ahead, sir.
I didn't quite catch what you said on page 4 about the ad hoc committees.
So how our ad hoc committees are currently set up is we don't get a new vice chair and chair every 2 years like the other standing committees do. So I'm suggesting that we do that with the ad hoc. So after the new board is set and we have our first campus reconfiguration meeting, there should be a new vote for who's going to be chair and who's going to be vice chair.
Oh, I got you.
One of the things that we talked about, if we go to a stipend versus a per meeting, we're really going to have to make sure that the meeting assignments are a lot more even, that we're really taking that into consideration when we're building it
Which it should be even as best they can anyway, but that's even more.
Yes, yeah.
And it's been a little tricky with that this year because of all the vacancies and seats becoming open and then trying to fill them when we're actually able to fill a vacancy with what's left over. As you know, we just filled the last 4 assignments, not too long ago, last week, Grant County Board. So it's been a bit of a struggle with that, and to just kind of expand on that a bit, it would be a lot easier procedurally to have the stipend. We can track that via attendance at standing committee meetings or committee meetings, however you folks would like to gauge that, or meet the certain conditions before someone would get paid. There's different ways. We're already tracking attendance. There's a couple different ways we can do this, which again is why this topic is being brought up now. So if we do change the compensation structure, then we kind of have that worked out some time to talk about that. So it would make it much easier than hunting down pieces of paper and things like that.
And we did talk about, we're finding that we get to a meeting and we don't know who's going to be in attendance and who's not. So we could build in, if you're excused from the meeting, if you notify the committee chair, the clerk's office, the administrator, however we want it to be structured, it doesn't count as a missed meeting, and maybe that will help with quorum. So if we know, hey, 3 people aren't going to make it and we need all of them,
But
we can.
on the other side of that coin too, if you miss the meeting and it's unexcused, there should be some kind of a fine.
Yes. And that's where we talked about, if there's more than one unexcused absence in a month, you forfeit your stipend.
Yep.
And also spreading out some accountability then, but also helping with that committee, those committee structures, because we have to, try to even them out as much as we can too. So it'll kind of help with that process too, when the committee and committees meets to find those assignments. How hard that is sometimes, it's kind of tricky, but that would, again, kind of reinforce the fact that we're really trying to spread these committees out so everyone has an equal opportunity to participate. And ideally, their first or second choices, but we know that doesn't always happen either. So again, spreading that out so people have the opportunity to participate as equally as possible.
Mr. Kalish, is there any way I can see this was adopted in '24? How tough would it be? Is that the right one?
No, there was one that was adopted on October 20th.
Well, amended, adopted.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Amended
Sorry.
there. So is there any way that, how hard would it be to highlight the items that were amended in '25?
I mean, I could go back and try to trace all the amendments and add them on there. There hasn't been a ton. I know Section 5 was a big one that was added. That was the most recent one. The other one that was added before that was the public comment one, where we did the public comment form and added item number 3 on the public comment form, with that being germane to county discussion. I think those were the big ones. I can dig out the other ones, I mean, I can. But the major ones were that section 5 and 6, the last few, and the public comment ones, off the top of my head.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else? Mr. Stevenson?
So a couple things on this stipend. I don't appreciate being told how supervisors should be acting or attending meetings by county employees that we are in charge of, minus the county clerk and other constitutional officers. So that should be on us making that decision of how we want to work our pay structure and how we want to discipline ourselves, even though we're elected and beholden to our constituents, who then choose whether they want to keep us in office or not keep us in office. And as an example, I think like some of these constitutional officers, they need to be there for the first day that they are in, and then the last day in office. What is holding them right now from them coming to work and getting their pay, their salary that they're getting? Are we holding them accountable for that right now? But yet we're going to be held accountable as a proposal to us?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I apologize, I didn't want it to be that I was trying to tell you guys how it should be. I'm offering suggestions, and ultimately, that's why we didn't change anything. That's why I'm just putting suggestions out there. And I think Derek made the comment about, kind of a different level of accountability, because it isn't on me. I can't control if people come or if people don't come. So I do apologize. I was not intending to tell those that I report to how they should behave. So I do apologize for that.
And then we told one other department in this county, I guess when we were doing our budgeting thing, that we didn't budget enough, and where are we going to get that money from? And here now we're looking at to increase our compensation and pad our pockets, but yet have we budgeted for $50,000 or a little more that we're going to need if each supervisor gets $200 a month, and you multiply that by 12? And we've gotten considerably less money than that $50,000 that we paid out for our supervisors thing. And I want to make note, since it's public, I do not collect a per diem, and I know a few other supervisors don't. So.
Go ahead.
I would note I'm also one of those who doesn't. I don't know that I'm strongly opposed to this, but I'm cautious about it because it's something other counties have talked about. I know we heard about it at the county officials workshop not last year, the year before when we went to it, that there were counties looking at going to different ways of trying to compensate county board members and do it fairly. I would be a little cautious about how we look at other things that supervisors do, like going to the county officials workshop. Historically, we've paid a per diem for that. And there may be other things where we've paid county board members per diem to attend something that would be outside of normal board meeting expectations. So I don't know what the answer is on that. I just want to bring it up. But it does feel like it's got a punitive aspect to it with, the potential, we haven't defined it yet, but saying, well, if you miss X amount of meetings, then you lose your whole stipend. Again, I'm cautious about that.
I would think, if we're willing to, but I know Derek or Tricia, when we'd like to have these approved by, any changes approved by the end of next month, right?
I believe it's preferential to have it set up before your new governing body takes over, because again, they won't have that background. And just to further comment on the stipend thing, I echo what Administrator Clemens says when we're looking at this. This was really being looked at more from a procedural efficiency standpoint. What can we do to just clarify how per diems are processed? I don't think there was there was no discussion about forcing elected officials to be held accountable to some degree. So I really do want to say this was really looked at from a more procedural aspect, because there are times when I get per diems 4 or 5 months later after they've occurred. In fact, that happened recently where I just got some from 2025 and now we're in 2026. So I would also offer a further clarification to that per diem that we set the time rules that they're turned in by X date before they're counted, because that does go between the budget. So I think I just want to clarify that that was not, again, what Administrator Clement said, to determine how elected officials should act nor to hold them accountable. It was really from more of a procedural aspect of what can we do to streamline those pay operations. So really, that was the intent of that. That was really just to open those up. And we did talk about this a few years ago because I was asked to contact my colleagues to see how they handled it. It was about 50-50 split at that point in time, so.
Mr. Carroll.
Well, if we decide to stay with our current system, maybe to save staff effort, we just set a deadline, and if supervisor hasn't turned their per diem reporting by a certain reasonable date, they don't get it done. No reason to chase it.
Mr. Chairman, the only problem I have with the per diem way of compensating this, basically I'm the district supervisor for number 3 when I'm in this room. Because that's the only place I'm getting paid for. That's the way I look at it. When I go outside this room, I'm not really on the job anymore. Because I'm not receiving any funds for it.
So are you telling me you don't do anything outside of this boardroom?
I do a lot of stuff.
I just wanted to make sure.
But I think we should review this and bring it up at our next board meeting and maybe even go to a closed session where we can talk more freely about it.
This is a closed session, this is how we compensate ourselves, so.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and I think, I mean, Derek has done some homework previously to adjoining counties, and I can make a couple phone calls. And
I've looked into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
just, but I mean,
It's,
also ought to not be factored in here is all the time Derek has spent chasing, and I will say it right here that our system is not user-friendly, is the easiest way to put it.
well, what I did, I went, how much should we get paid? I don't know. So I started investigating our neighbors. I went with Iowa County, Grant County, Rock County, and Vernon County. Because they're elected officials just like us, and they're supposed to have posted wages in there, just like us. It's hard to find it. Iowa County was easy, Sauk County was easy. The other two, I just can't tell you. I know Iowa County's got 20 supervisors, Sauk County's got 19. Sauk County posts their wages for 2024, which means they're not updated yet. And then it's really nice. They have a picture of the person and his address or her address and everything. They posted 2024 wages, but it's always base wage or base salary. So that in turn leads me to think maybe there's some kind of a bonus pool or something. But it is a lot more than what we're getting. Now,
Some county supervisors are getting health insurance too, in different areas.
you don't want to take, I know you don't want to say, well, you can't compare us with them because they're much bigger, they got more people, they do. But when it comes down to it, we have about the similar responsibilities as their county court does. They've got more zeros on the end of it, obviously, because they've got more people. But the real responsibility is pretty much the same from county to county, if you have supervisors. And I looked at Dane County too. You want to know about that?
Mr. Cooley, any comments? Is he actually on there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes names.
No.
There you go.
I don't have any comment. I don't take any wage either, so I don't care what we do.
Perfect, thank you. All right, well, Sandy's on there too. Is that Sandy?
Yep, that's Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy, any comment?
Not at this time. And as far as if we do go with, like Derek said, he can't get his paperwork in, he just got one from 2025. If we go that route again, maybe we ought to make it to where if you don't have it in by 30 days, then you're out, just out of the money.
Okay, sounds like we'll have it on next month's first meeting agenda, and if we get everything worked out, we'll make the county board it. If there's changes. Well, I'm sure there'll be changes.
So are there any other changes to the rules that you want us to consider, or is what we presented tonight enough to chew on for now? Is that what's just,
Well, if we take time and read through the
Okay.
the entire articles, maybe there will be more changes.
Okay.
We had discussion at one time about incorporating mandatory IT training into the county board rules, because right now, it says we're supposed to be required to do it as county board members, but there's no enforcement mechanism. If we put it in our county board rules that says we're required to, then we have a way to back that up.
Does it mention anywhere in our new media policy, or what is that one called?
The social media.
Yeah, is that gonna be put in?
That would be a different thing, but that's,
I mean, I'm just thinking of other ideas.
incorporate it by reference or something.
Absolutely. And maybe we should also have this where we review this every year.
Yeah, Mr. Carroll, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I might even go further than what Mr. Kirk said, that new board members required to attend an orientation. And that puts it on the board to actually do orientations every election. But there's much more than just learning how to play with your iPad.
Mr. Severson?
Would you be able to put in highlights in the spots that you wanted, where you wanted these amendments to be made or considerations? So we're able to look at it and then kind of ponder or add, just so.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that if we, not that we're gonna go back to the original one that we did.
well, we already amended it, so you just amended it as the date says up there,
Yeah.
October 20th, so this is the
Were
most
there-
recent version of your minute.
I assume there were board rules prior to 2024?
You've always functioned under board rules,
So
yes.
we could find an old copy if a person wanted to go back and look.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they're in all the meeting packets and that you had rules 1 through whatever before. So
Yeah.
yes, this document's not that old. If you look in the packet from March of 2024, you'll find the first version of the new ones.
All right.
Yes,
Our old board rules were never this detailed.
correct.
Right.
Never.
No.
And I think that was the intent of these, was to try to help with some of that stuff and to, again, clear stuff up so there's no questions, or it's just easier to govern yourselves, I suppose.
All right.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Number one then, so with compensation, you want us to draft a potential stipend, but no consequences for anything, just so I have that straight. And then as far as the future agenda items, are you okay if we add that this will be a future agenda item on a standing committee versus on the full county board?
I think standing first.
Good. Ready to move on? Which ones do you have to cover next, Jeff?
And then we start with 7.
7, back to 7, all right. Sorry I was late, but the dentists are not always on time. Number 7, discussion on the report of financial condition of the Richland County Ambulance Services. Item 7. And that is, she's firing it up, all right.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm gonna share my screen. Again, I'm Leanna Pick, Finance Director speaking. So I'm gonna give you where we're at as of December 31st. These are unaudited financial statements. So I will say that right at the beginning here, so everybody's aware of that.
Are you sharing your screen, or am I just going to use the
I was
packet?
gonna try to share mine.
Okay, then I'll stop. Just go like that. There you go.
Okay. So we can try to make it a little bit bigger for everybody here too. If that helps. All right, so we'll start with the balance sheet as of December 31st. Obviously, I ran this last week just to make sure it picked up any changes or anything that we've made, because we have been doing what we normally do, which is reclassing any expenses that would come in at the beginning of January back to 2025. Same thing with any revenues that pertain to 2025. Those were also reclassed back if we had any. So In terms of cash, our cash pool ended at 198,000 here, and I can go to my next screen and just give you a little recap here. So this is the claim of cash that you have within your package. It shows you kind of by month what happened in terms of deposits, the cash coming in, the AP and AP corrections cash going out, payroll and payroll corrections cash going out. And journal entries also picked up some of what we were doing in terms of payroll payables as well, which then took our claim on cash to 190,000. So we add up all of the expenses were 842 versus the cash of 652. So we had a deficit there in our claim of cash. That's how you read that report. Okay, then going on to the next part, which is accounts receivable. So this is everything that the ambulance service, Unified, and before that EMC had billed to customers. So we had 489,317 sitting in accounts receivable for all years as of December 31st. That gets netted against the $200,000 allowance for bad debt that was put on the account last year in 2024 as part of the audit entries. So I would expect again this year another audit entry to come through in terms of what's still out there for AR for 2025. I can't tell you what that entry is going to be at the moment. That is something that the auditors will do their analysis and they will determine an amount to be uncollectible. We know that amount historically has been about 40%. So we could expect another large entry coming in that will go into the allowance and reduce essentially the net receivables we have remaining. Then in terms of liabilities, those are just what we had in terms of payables at the end of the year. Anything related to payroll that kind of crossed over the payroll periods and the wage accrual for days that we had on hand at the end of the year that needed to be paid out. The next section is our equity section. So we started the year with 108,000 of equity within the ambulance service. We collected revenue of $1,292,000, and we spent $1,319,000, giving us a deficit of $27,000 to finish 2025. That gets netted against your fund balance and takes you to your new fund balance, which would be $81,426 pre-audited, so before the auditors make their entry. So when they make their entry, you could essentially see the rest of that 80,000 and some change go away with that, flipping that fund balance to negative for 2026. So that's my warning on that.
Question. Are you asking questions as we go or
Sure.
at the end?
What, that good with you?
Yeah, I'm fine
Yeah,
with that.
go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
All right. Comparing total beginning equity, beginning of the year, 108,000, and then I'm not clear which one is the one we look at for end of the 81,000 or the 106,000?
It would be the 81,000, so that would be the fund balance.
So what is the
The
106?
106,000 is in accounting, your assets have to equal your liabilities plus owner's equity. So what that does is take your 81,000 of your equity and it says you got 25,000 of liabilities, so this is the balance of equity and liabilities. It's just the accounting equation. But the fund balance itself for equity would be 81,000. We don't count our liabilities.
So if we're trying to determine a trend or how things are looking from start of the year to end of the year, we're 20,000 less.
You have, yes, from the start of the year until the end of the year, you had $27,367, less than when you started the year.
All right.
So your equity has decreased, and that's pre-audit entry. When that audit entry comes through, it's going to increase your expense for 2025, and it's going to decrease your receipt, it's going to increase your allowance, essentially decreasing your receivables on the balance sheet. So two sides to every entry.
All right, thank you.
So then what we can do is we can go look at our monthly income statement, which is going to show you the 1.2 and the breakdown of the 1.3 in expenses. So this is our monthly income statement for 2025. So what you'll notice in December is we had a very large amount in terms of ambulance fees invoice. This is made up by two different parts. So when we finished December 2024, Unified had taken over, but never sent us a report of AR collected in December of 2024. So that amount was, if I can get my note to open up here, that amount was $60,960. So that amount is included in this December revenue, because per our auditors, we had to book it, we have to record it, so we recorded it. It was missing. It wasn't anywhere within our financials before December 2025. So I recorded that. Then what we did is every time that we got a report from EMC or Unified, they were always a month behind, so there was a month lag. So when we met in October, I was really giving you September collections information. Go ahead.
So again, what was the reason that there were no fees invoiced in January, March, and April?
It was MC squared to start with, and Unified, they didn't send us any of the reports until about mid-year. We got no reports from them of what the revenue was or the expenses that they were recording in terms of write-offs.
There were a lot of phone calls and emails back and forth trying to get what we needed.
That's taken care of now.
So, yeah, that's why you see that large bump here in June, where you see that we booked 498,000. That's essentially the first 6 months of the year.
Got it.
And then you can see we kind of go down after that, and we average anywhere from 65, to 100,000 or so in our revenue in the months coming out after that. But December included 60,000 that we were never sent from 2024. So we booked that in terms of the receivables. We also got it caught up in terms of the lag. So December's number includes actuals from November and December to get the year caught up to what Unified is showing. So that's why that number is so large in December. And I can show you what it is. Here is January, which has finished already for 2026, so you can see that is what we got from Unified in terms of their AR, about the usual amount. Okay, and then we did collect from all of the towns that were outstanding, so that was all finished up in December, so that's why there was a big bump there as well from the ones that had been lagging a little bit behind in that last quarter of the year. So with that, we finished the year at 1.292 million of revenue. And then the highlighted ones here are just the payroll-related expenses, so I just like to make those kind of stand out a little bit. And then everything sort of below that colored section is all of the kind of normal operating expenses, things that we can try to control in terms of cost reductions and things like that. So we go down, and you can see the other big one that hit, obviously if we book 2 months worth of AR from Unified, we also book 2 months worth of their write-off for those same receivables. So that's why that one is also very high for the month in terms of the direct write-offs that we do, like right away from Unified. And some of the highlighted numbers, the highlighted ones are the ones that you just saw on your balance sheet. So you saw the 1.292 in the revenue. You see the 1.319 in terms of the expenses. And you see that minus 27,000 in terms of your reduction to the equity. So that's me just highlighting it so you can bring it back to the main page. Yes.
Question on the write-offs. What would be the typical age of those write-offs, or how far back would those be before you finally decide to write them off in a particular month?
It's not our decision. This is the report that we get each month from Unified. And in this report, what we book is this new AR activity. Cash receipts comes in independently of any of these. And then we also book the write-offs that they give us. So this is Unified telling us right away, we're not going to collect this amount. for whatever it is, Medicare, whoever is gonna deny it immediately, that's what they're doing. They're making an adjustment right from the beginning. The auditors are aware that we're using a hybrid model of direct write-off each month and an allowance method of the receivables that remain. So they are aware of that, that has been documented. Going back here, so you can see again our 27,000 and then there's our 81,000 that the fund balance will change to. So it just walks the fund balance forward for you from the 108 to how we get to the 81 each month. Any other questions on that? Or?
Do you consider the FAP increase money? It was like 30,000 per.
What's the FA? That's the year over year where we went back and got additional grant monies. Until those come in, they are not in here in these numbers. They come in before the audit. We will reclass them, otherwise I assume that the audit will also catch those and reclass those back. So that will be a bump, not sure, 50, 60,000, I'm not sure what that number was, but it'll be a bump up here, which may clear some of the negative that we had, but again, keep in mind, the auditors are gonna make a big entry on top of this. So we don't know what the net effect of that money coming in and that auditor entry going out will be. So I could take a guess, but I don't want to do that. I'm just telling you what it could be, okay?
Mr. Chairman, so Barb has filed a couple of those, so we were not filing for one of the state grant funds that we could get. So what it is the state of Wisconsin tries to compensate us for that money we're not getting from Medicaid. So she filed 2023 and we're gonna get just over 19,000. For 2024, we're gonna get just over 27,000. She's working on filing, or submitting 2026. So we can expect moving forward that we will get probably a $25,000 bump every year moving forward. And I think the one you referenced, Carrie, is a grant that we get yearly. It used to be about 10 and now it's up to 40, and I think that's for, specifically for equipment and training.
Yeah, that money does still remain within the equipment and training budget. We did check that last week at Barb's request, so that money is out there for that. It's in a different fund, so we are just looking at Fund 510, which is the operations of the ambulatory fund. Okay, year-over-year comparison, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I did update for where we finished for 2025, and then I highlighted these just in blue because instead of taking some of these lower ones now, I've taken just a 3-year average so we can get more of a realistic picture of where we're operating. So we can see that on average we're bringing in just a little over $1 million in revenue, which we knew we were doing. In terms of a few things that stuck out to me, we did spend an awful lot in overtime last year, as we all knew with the staffing constraints and things that we had. It just required more overtime, so you can see that that is a big difference year over year, so I just highlighted that. We know that when we changed to a new facility, that also brought increased costs, so this 23 to 25 really picks up that window only. It doesn't pick up the stuff before we move to a new facility and increased staff and all that.
Say again what the jump in overtime was caused by?
That, I believe, from what I've heard, was caused by just missing the manager, the director position and being down a little, one staff position, I think.
So we had back in June, we had quite a few staff that walked out between June and July. So the staff that stayed did put in a lot of extra hours, and I'm presuming that that's where that came from.
So then, yeah, just scroll down, I just look at the amounts to see if anything sticks out. We did spend a little bit more on maintenance, but we have some older equipment there, so that kind of explains that little bit of bump you see. A little bit more on fuel. Fuel costs kind of spiked a little bit, 24 to 25. And then the claims clearinghouse, this line is actually the bill that we get from either EMS or Unified for their services. So their chunk of what we bring in. And then the big ugly duck in the room is the write-offs, which right now we have $494,000 in there, and we're not, typically this one now would be about 43%, but that is about what the auditors look to do for their allowance or their write-off that they put on the books. And then that brings us to an average, so we got an average expenses of about 1.2, and you can see where we're taking in just a little over $1 million. So therefore giving us essentially a shortfall because we are spending more than we can technically bring in. And then the fund balance again just walks that forward for you. The beginning balance of the fund balance, the revenue plus the revenues less the expenses equals your ending balance. Any other questions on that? The one comment I will make in terms of, sustainability, what we'd like to see is that fund balance increasing. Without such a hefty fund balance and no real clear path to increase that fund balance, I have a feeling we're going to continue to operate the way that you see in these figures here and that you have seen year over year in the comparison. And I'm already seeing it as I gave you a little flash at what was in January here. I pulled this right before the meeting just so I could take a look. So our January billings from Unified were $75,000. We had a little bit come in from the town, so we're at 80, just a little over 80,000 there. Obviously just our monthly expenses. We had the insurances come through. So when those come through, that's $11,000 there. And then a huge amount of write-offs already to start the year under Unified at almost 62,000. So there's our expense total for the month. So we brought in, what did I say, 80,000, and we spent 128,000 in January of 2026. So already giving us a deficit to start 2026. Any questions?
Would you be able to explain the insurance write-offs and why that's such a high dollar amount?
I believe we sort of talked a little bit about that and the fact that that is a number that comes directly from Unified. So you can see we had 2 months here together that we booked for December because we were getting caught up. So there's 123,000 that would have booked to the write-offs in December. So that is coming directly from Unified's reporting, and what it does is it's reducing the AR balance right away.
I guess what I'm looking for in that answer would be, how does Medicare affect that insurance write-off?
Might be a question
So
for
when you bill for Medicare patients, and Medicare gives you that money back, may not be the full dollar amount, we cannot go to that consumer or our patient and ask for the remainder of that money back. And so this is what you're seeing here is those write-offs from that. Not all of it, but a huge chunk of that is from that being not able to charge for our full amount.
So there was a study done, and I think the numbers came from 2022 that I just read today, that it's an average of $90 per Medicaid call, and we get $30. So there's that $60 that's automatically written off that we don't get. And this is across the state. This isn't us. We're really hoping we're switching providers. We're really hoping that will help a little bit. Partly because with Unified, as you know, we have lots of communication issues. We have lots of issues getting them motivated to do what they need to do. But we shouldn't have to. We're paying them money, and we shouldn't have to constantly be pushing and prodding them to do what they need to do. So we are hoping that it'll help a little bit, but it's not going to offset a significant deficit, but I do think it will help.
Rich, I got a question then, going back to that 30/90. Do I understand this right? In order to get the 30, we have to charge the 90?
So we charge the 90, that's what it cost us to go out. And in the end, Medicaid says, but we're gonna only give you $30.
Go ahead, Barb.
I think it's still different.
I think it's been up there from before.
Sorry, I didn't know I had my hand up. I apologize, that's from earlier. I agree with absolutely everything that they are saying, and I am hopeful the new billing company, they are going to go after the old debt, which is something Unified never did. They have a collections department. We will be intercepting via trip, which we were not doing. So there is some hope for some of that write-off to come back. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Severs.
What do you think of a business plan
For this?
for an ambulance? Yeah. Do you think a business plan would help?
I don't know if it would, because a lot of times in business, you're gonna talk, either you have a revenue or you have an expense problem. I mean, we're pretty dead even, I think, without raising costs on the revenue side. But again, if they're just gonna say, hey, you billed 90, but we're only gonna give you 30, I don't know how we overcome that and how any business plan helps that. And with the tightening of stuff going to Medicaid and Medicare coming up in the future, those battles, I'm not sure that we are equipped enough to fight those battles, truthfully, being as small as we are. And in my own opinion, as much as I hate it in terms of, I don't like privatization, but not-for-profit privatization where it could technically help us in terms of, the skill level being part of a bigger pool and part of an organization that knows more about it could be beneficial. I have a hard time believing that a district is going to save this, just because what I've seen year over year, and as an outsider coming in, I knew nothing of this coming in, and I came in August, started reviewing this in September, October, and I've had the same sort of opinion. It's like, it's just kind of going to keep depleting and depleting as costs keep going up and revenues are just kind of remaining static. So I'm not sure, I'd have to see a business plan on how we would, again, how do we build equity in this without increasing top line revenue or extreme expense reduction? You can't build equity.
So we did have a business plan at one time for the Richland County Ambulance Service, and the county board directed the ambulance service to have autonomous operation by 2026. And so that business plan was written, and it showed steps on how to achieve to where we could be self-sustaining and staying in the black, because we were in the black for how many years up until now, until recent, and we're not. But we had that opportunity, and I don't know if my colleagues just decided to punt that book down the road and say we're going to do it our way, and I think that could possibly have led to where we're at today.
Yeah, I can't speak to what happened prior. I can speak to what I see on the paper and what we can do going forward. In terms of what the county is going to continue to do, I think we're going to continue to have our struggles. As you can see, we're not really hitting a high note to start 2026. You're going to kind of start 48,000 in the hole. Isn't kind of the best way I want to start. A lot of it is that direct write-off that's coming from Unified and the various insurance companies. I'm just not sure. It's like any private business. Sure, we could just raise the prices all we wanted to, but the fact is we can raise the price, but Medicare is going to ignore it and just send us what they're going to send us. Yes?
Mr. Carroll.
I guess I need to understand the write-off makeup better. It sounds like it's more than just Medicare not compensating the way they should. There's other aspects. And if this is all part of us getting ready to make a decision, I'd want to understand more detail on what all that write-off is composed of. And if there's any of it we can do something about.
Okay. We may be able to get some of that detail from Unified, so we can reach out to them and see if they can send us the detail, the who behind the write-offs necessarily. And we
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Cooley.
so in the experience that I have with this, and this goes back to when Darren was running it, the only way you could, we have to charge X to get Y from Medicare and Medicaid. So that's why the price is what it is. It's set to maximize what you can get from Medicare and Medicaid. The only way you can increase that, and Barb could probably answer this better than me, but if it was all at like a paramedic level, that's what we carried on the trucks all the time, then there would be a little bit more, but the cost might not outweigh the difference, right? So having trained paramedic staff may cost more than what you would receive in the difference, but it's always been this way, so I got involved in this early, whenever the JAC started, and Darren always explained that basically you write off about half of what you get in revenue. The biggest change, and you can see it, I mean, when you look at the numbers, is the labor, right? So it went from pretty much a volunteer service. We started adding full-time people, which was the right thing to do. I'm not saying it wasn't, but the cost in labor went up considerably over the last 3 years. And not just, last year's kind of an outlier with that overtime, but you can see that there's some overtime that's just built into that. And, you went from 147,000 in 2020 to 274,000 in just wages in 25. So, and I'm not saying you pay anybody less. All I'm saying is that in everything that I've been to, about 70% or 75% of your service is wages and benefits. And that's what the people will tell you that look at this stuff and try to help everybody figure out what's the right thing to do. So it's just something you got to understand, that when you were running with a part-time crew or a mostly volunteer crew, you may not have coverage you expected, but the cost was a little bit easier to stomach, I guess is the best way to put it. So, and I think that's one of the things you got to look at. Wages should go up every year. I mean, you want to take care of your employees and all that, but it shows that the townships and everybody that's involved in it, we have to be prepared to pay what is, whether it's whichever taxpayer is paying it. We got to understand that it's not going to go down, and maybe the only way to get to where it's more manageable is to have a service that provides more service at a higher level, and that's what you go with. So I guess that's all I got.
And that's what our business plan outlined, was to get up to that level and to increase inter-facility transports, because there's where you can get a little bit extra money, other than doing the 911 calls.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mark. Further questions? Mr. Randy?
But you got to take and consider too, every day we're getting older in this county. And the vast majority of our ambulance service, our ambulance calls are through Medicare and Medicaid. So to me, it's just going to be worse as it goes on. No matter if it's our service or somebody else's service, it's getting, and it's going to be very expensive. Healthcare is always going to be very expensive.
Comment, Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, this is not an area I'm very familiar with, but I didn't quite understand how, if it was decided to shunt this out to a private service, how they have a better ability to get revenue from Medicare to cover their costs. What's the difference?
There's no. They can charge the townships money.
They what?
They can get money from the townships to get money to offset their expenses. Say, if we're going to cover your township since you're required to, this is X dollar amount of fee that we're going to charge you in order to cover your township.
As could the county.
Well, and what those private services do also is they also run inter-facility transports.
So
What
they have
they're doing
something
over
to-
across the river, they're pulling out, the private service is pulling out across the river because they can't make 911 calls. Well, they can, but it costs them too much money.
So the advantage that a third party has is if they're larger, they have buying power. So they can buy equipment in bulk, they're buying 15 trucks instead of one truck. There's a little bit there. But they also have their costs spread out. So they may have 15 services with 1 or 2 service directors where we have 1 service director that covers all of that. I think they also have good equipment. We don't have, and it's that equity that Leanna talked about. We don't have that equity to kind of continue to build our service where a third party would have that already. And when we had a meeting with municipalities last month and Gunderson Ambulance was here, they did say it's really a struggle. Their Medicaid reimbursement rate in Iowa is much less than what Wisconsin's is. And so they did say they're having a lot of struggles with trying to make ends meet there.
Good. Any other questions for Leanne? Anyone? Ready to move on? All right, let's move on to item 8, discussion and possible action on the funding of expenses associated with the formation of ambulance union. Item 8.
So as you guys all know, the ambulance staff did file a petition for election. That election, the ballots were sent out on Friday. And I just wanted to let you know that thus far we've spent $6,162.50. That's through the end of January 2026 on this. So this is on the county end. And we will be, starting January 1, putting these expenses to Fund 510, so to the operating budget of the ambulance. So I just really wanted to let you guys know. I'll keep you updated on the status of everything. But this is another added expense that was not budgeted into the service that will be onto them.
Question, Mr. Carroll.
Do we anticipate ongoing legal costs at a similar rate?
I would say yes. So the latest, when we negotiated the sheriff's contract, the last time it cost us over $5,000. We wouldn't be negotiating a contract, we're negotiating the creation of a contract. And so I think it will be a little bit expensive for us.
Further questions in regards to the expenses so far in the union? All right, let's move on to item 9. Discussion and possible action on the resolution establishing the salaries for the sheriff, clerk of court, and the coroner.
So I've put Tracy in charge of this, and so she will be sharing some comparables and talking through this. This is really kind of one of those that we're going to come back and talk about more. This is really the first time that we're going to be looking at this, but we do have to have this determined at our March full county board.
What is coming around? No, I typed it. So what's coming around are the comparables for the 3 positions. I have access to a master document that's all of the counties in the state of Wisconsin. And what's on here are the counties that have posted their rates for these particular positions. On the bottom of each sheet is a statement that with the percentages of the changes for these positions. It's for all of the counties in the state of Wisconsin that have reported. So, for instance, for the coroner, the information that's available shows in the increases from 2027, from 26 to 27, it ranges from 3% to 13.3% of an increase. So that's not just these, it's every county in the state. And then for 2028 through 2030, it ranges from 2 to 5% for the coroner. So that's the statement on the bottom. As information comes in, I will continue to update these, but this is the information that I have as of today. The last time I checked it was this morning.
And when do we have to have these set by, Mr. Kalish?
Nomination papers can be circulated April 15th. It's so quick. April 15th.
Any questions for me?
Questions, comments? They want to read through it, right?
Let me look at it first.
Fine.
They're not quite as fast as you were.
can relate that the coroner information is the information that is not, there's not as much information available for the coroner for that particular position. In general, as you can see, like more information is available for the clerk of court and the sheriff.
See what others do.
And most of these, as they were listed on the master document, they do also that they are subject to approval. So none of these are approved yet, as of yet, according to that document.
We're really looking at this meeting today is if there's any thoughts, ideas, or comments you had for us as we come back next month or the next meeting with some additional proposals.
We're not proposing any increase right now?
Correct. Not right now. We wanted to see if you guys had any proposed increases or thoughts for us.
What would it look like if we continued the 7%, 7%, 4, and 3% like we did last time? What would that look like? Is that even a modest increase, or?
So the spreadsheet, as I'm looking at it, when I look at it, there seems to be a large increase for almost all counties from 26 to 27. There's a big increase, and then they level out the rest of the year. I think Langley County was the one that had the more steady increase. They did no increase for this year, and then it was 2% for the rest of them. That is the exception, not the rule from what I have seen. There seems to be a larger increase for 26 to 27. 25 to 26.
26. Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Cooley.
does anybody remember, did we try to, when we did this last time, was it comparable to counties our size, or were we taking an average of the whole state?
So the list that's on here, that's the form that I sent you in here, these are the counties that are comparable in size or neighboring counties.
Good.
But the statement on the bottom is every county in the state that has reported thus far.
I think we typically try to go with comparables.
I think those are referenced, as a starting point anyway. It doesn't mean they have to be, but as a starting point.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
As I recall, the 7% list, we're trying to catch up because we were behind.
That's what I thought, but I couldn't remember for sure. And how are we, I can't see that document, so how are we in comparison now?
I would say with the sheriffs, we're probably right in the middle, is what I would say. With the clerk, I would say we're on the higher end. And so that is one thing too, we don't have to do the same for all of them. Those can be separate. One thing that it seems that we're finding with the sheriffs, some of them are getting some pretty large jumps, but there's union contracts that are in there, so they're trying to avoid those compression issues. And
Sheriff's not a union member, though.
Correct, but the union members continue to go up, and there's a concern that some of the union members
Yeah, I remember that discussion.
might catch them.
So Mark, Crawford County on the sheriff is 98,000, Grant County's 96, Iowa County's 103, currently we're at 97.4. Proposed for Grant is going up to 110, that's a 15% increase. Proposed for Iowa County is 115, going up 11.7%. Don't have the other one, Crawford County's not in there yet, so that's just on the sheriff. We can, go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
These will get put in our iPad folders, right?
Can scan them and put them into the, yep.
I just sent you a text, Mark, with all these the pictures of that.
I did email it to you.
We just wanted to get the most up to date. Next meeting, we'll have them in the packet in advance. They're just slowly coming in, and we're trying to keep it as up to date as we can.
Okay. Further questions for our finance director?
HR.
HR. Finance is going.
You really don't want me to have anything to do with finance?
No, that's very true.
Mr. Chair, just to note, in the packet, I included the resolution from when these were adopted the last time. That's why that's in there, just so if you wanted to look at, just so you could see what it was last time for comparison purposes and to have the percentages in there. They chose not to put the actual salaries in there when they were calculated last time. We'll change that for the new resolution, but just so you had the background info, that's why I included that resolution in there from the last time, so you had it.
What about the rest of
I got another question.
Go ahead,
Our
Mark.
comments. You know, the other thing would be interesting to see is the growth of them counties versus ours. You know, per capita or whatever you want to call it, but there may be a reason why they're raising that. You know, where our county and the population continues to decline. And if these other counties are in some growth, you know, I don't know if that matters or not, but it could be just sheer population growth or something like that to look at to see if, I don't know. It's hard to do a wage study. That's all I would say because none of it's going to compare. I mean, Grant County is twice the size of our county probably. I don't know. And it's just hard to compare. But I don't know if there's something to look at like
Lafayette's the
that.
closest to us in comparison, Lafayette County.
Yeah.
Population and land mass.
Good point of possible, I would agree that maybe we should look at, it won't hurt if they put it right in the packet. Anything else on that item? Seeing, hearing none, let's move on to item 10, discussion and possible action, updates to the handbook of personnel policies and work rules of Richland County.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
we're going to discuss clerk of court and coroner.
Oh, yes. I thought we had, do you want to discuss them more, or just wait till next month? I don't, we were covering all three, but I know I read him, the sheriff, Mr. Severson sent a picture of each sheet to Mr. Cooley. But does anybody have questions, comments on clerk of court? If not, we'll continue. And it sounds like she's gonna put any new information she gets right into our packets as any of these get filled in. Along with populations per county would be a great idea. All right. Now on to 10, handbook, personnel policies, work rules.
So the handbook is going to always kind of be a work in progress. If we find issues that we come across, I'm going to be bringing them to you to try to keep it most up to date. So a couple of things that we came across that we want to update. On page 7, section 2, in outside employment, we are adding language to talk about if internal employment has a conflict. So we included including other employment within county government. Before it was just outside employment, so we wanted to clarify that if the employment you have with the county and you try to do another job conflicts with that job, that we have the ability to say you can't do the second job. So that's what we added there. In the vacation section, we added language that regular part-time employees who work more than 20 hours but less than 35 per week will receive their vacation on a prorated basis. Because that is practice, that's just not what's in the handbook. And then on the probation period section, it says employees whose probation periods are extended are not eligible to receive their post-probation salary increases. We no longer have post-probation salary increases, so we need to take that language out. So these are 3 recommended changes that I'm asking the committee to consider.
Questions, comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to move these 3 changes on the full county board. Did you guys get a?
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Kramer. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Turk. Any more discussion? I know when I worked for the state, we had outside employment rules, so I would assume there's plenty of them out there. This looks somewhat comparable. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of moving these 3 changes on the full county board signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, moves on to full county board. You took care of 11 as I came in. Item 12, discussion, review of Appendix A, committee and other boards and commissions. Item 12.
All right, so we have Appendix A that's in the packet, and we'll do the same thing with the Appendix A as we did with Rules of Board. For Executive and Finance Standing Committee, we are removing the board liaison for and review budget performance of Joint Ambulance Committee because there is no longer the Joint Ambulance, and removed board liaison for Lone Rock Library Board as we no longer have a representation on the Lone Rock Library. On page 2, we have the Pine Valley Committee. There was a suggestion at the Committee on Committees to have a discussion about should we still have the Pine Valley Committee or should they report directly or be just part of the Community and Health Services. So we would like to have this committee have some discussion on that. Also looking at parks and having some discussion on should we keep the Parks Committee or should it report just directly, have that be part of the Public Works Committee. Under the Public Safety Committee, we want to add EMS, that they functions as the, or oversights the EMS department. On page 5, to remove the joint ambulance. On the Simons Natatorium Board on page 6, we have 3 members. 1 is County Board Chair and 2 are at large. The updated agreement that we have says County Board Chair or designee, so we want to add that language. And then under ad hoc, we want to add the County Facilities Planning Committee. And the Library Planning Committee, I guess we just wanted to gather some insight. Is there a Library Planning Committee? Has there ever? Is this something that we should have, shouldn't have? So we didn't know if some of the members of the board who have been on here for a long time know what the history on that committee is.
I don't have any.
It's something that runs through like CISA or where that runs through.
Wasn't the city wanting to rebuild the library? And then we, you know, since we had a member sitting on the library board, weren't you a member of that?
Still am.
Yeah. When the city wanted to rebuild that, so then we had to have a,
I can check with the city and
Yeah, maybe.
check on that.
Maybe it was a city committee.
There was one more proposed change, Mr. Chair, to Viola Library Board. I believe there was the request that maybe we add an additional county board member to that one as well. That was discussed or brought up at one point, so we want to entertain that in the composition of that committee as well.
Who's our member now, do you know?
Mary Miller.
Mary Miller.
Miller, yes, okay.
So it's on page 6.
And what would the reason be for that?
I can't say no to detail for that. I just know it was mentioned that perhaps there could be another member added, so.
I can speak to that. I was our rep on that board. I think they're trying to make sure there's equal voice because that library covers both Vernon and Richland. And in terms of the amount we pay to that library, they want to make sure there's good representation of Richland. But I don't think it has to be a county board member. I think it could be a Richland County.
So Steve, you're saying that Vernon County has 2 board members on it? And this is kind of equal out?
There are 2 people from Richland County, one of which is Mary Miller, who's a county board person, I don't think you have to be a county board person to be representing the county. So, rather than saying we need someone else from this board to be added, maybe we try to find somebody.
So when you were on there was 2 people from Richland County.
Yes, but I was the only one.
You're the only county board person.
Yeah,
So is that person still on there? The other non?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yes. Happens to be my sister-in-law. She's still on.
Okay.
Are we paying her?
I don't know that.
No, that's good. Well, and that's kind of like the airport board. We went from 3 counties to Richland and Sauk, but Sauk is paying 66%, so now they have 4 members, we have 2, which equals out to the voice. But we never usually have any issues that come down to a vote of, 4-1 or 4-2 or whoever's there. But I think we could probably find out a little more information. Are we making any of these decisions tonight, or just information mostly?
So we would like to have some discussion from the committee, on Pine Valley Committee and on the County Parks Committee, and recommendations so we can bring this back with what you guys are recommending related to those 2 committees.
Steve?
Go ahead, Steve, sorry.
I looked at the description for the Natural Resources Committee, since I'm chair on that. I know we're mostly just looking at the general organization of all the committees, but there were some specific things in there that I think need to be looked at and edited. 91.02 reference, I couldn't find that was the right reference, and so there's something not right there. And there's a couple other references to the Wisconsin statutes that are, let's just say they're pretty general. And so I was wondering at some point it'd be nice, maybe not now, but to actually double check places where statutes are referenced and make sure they still make sense.
Comments in regards to, we'll start with the Pine Valley Committee.
Well, I'm on that committee, and I would say it probably makes sense that it runs with the other one. Just because that's what it pertains to. I know it's a little bit different, but I wouldn't see a problem with that.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Sandy.
didn't at one time the county was looking to streamlining some of these committees so we wouldn't have quite so many?
Yes, and before you got on, it was even, how do I politely say it, worse.
Well, I agree with Mark. The Pine Valley Committee, you can do everything as the Health and Human Services Committee and just get rid of the Pine Valley Committee altogether. That's my opinion.
It's a lot of money in that one committee. Those supervisors are gonna be,
How long is this committee had an independent Pine Valley committee? I venture to say probably longer than some of you have been alive.
Well, not alive, but longer than I've been on the board for sure.
I mean, I can remember it when I was graduating from high school. So, and it is a lot of money. It's got quite, I think $9 million, did you say that is their budget for next year?
I don't know right off the top of my head, but it's up there, that might be higher than that.
and then whatever human service would be after that budget too, a few million on that, so.
Human services around 10.
My first thought was kind of like we're headed with Public Works, Mark, and those of you that are in here that are on it, is almost like quarterly, but that's just a thought as far as Pine Valley. that's kind of the way we went with the old highway committee, public works. There's a lot of stuff that we wouldn't have ever gotten this past month if it wasn't for the truck bids that we needed to take care of, so that would, I'm just throwing that out as an idea as well. I was on Pine Valley prior 2 years ago, so. But that was back when we approved bills and all that stuff, which no longer takes place at that committee level.
Well, the only thing I would say is how does it, this administrative style of government is a little bit different than it was that Pine Valley Committee before, is all I would say, and the same with the highway department and all. There was a much more expectation of board members to do. We made more decisions, maybe that's the best way, to put it, and I don't know that them decisions are made quite the same as they were in the past.
Agreed.
So, and that's the only reason, I mean, basically, in a lot of these committees, we're reviewing what's already happened. Years ago, like on highway, we had to approve that every bill, everybody that was hired, everything that happened. And you don't do that now. Now, I'm not saying someone shouldn't be reviewing it. That's not the point I'm trying to make. It's just, we got to define what the boards are going to do and what Tricia's got to, and Tricia's, held responsible, I guess, but we need to find out, that if it's just a policy-making thing, then quarterly is probably plenty, So, I don't know. It all depends on what's going on, too, so. But I'm not against it going to the Health and Human Services. But on this, I get where Carrie's coming from. There's $20 million, whatever, runs through that. So I get if you need to have more oversight on it, then maybe that's what we should be looking for. If that's what we think we need, then we just leave it the way it is.
And part of it is, I think Trish is gonna weigh in, but I think, how much do you feel comfortable with, without?
And I feel comfortable not having the Pine Valley Committee. I know there's been a couple of times in the past year that we had quorum issues. I think it's harder and harder to make quorum at different meetings, so if we can have less meetings. But we also have a finance director, and as those of you who are on the Pine Valley saw, she came in, she gave a very deep dive into the Pine Valley budget at the meeting last week, just as she did with ambulance. So we do have that employee that their job is really to do these deep dives into these budgets and really make sure that the money is being spent where it should be.
In all honesty, this meeting here, ahead of the county board meeting, is where we should review that stuff. And probably should be reviewing it quarterly or whatever as we go. To me, that would make more sense than to have the committee get it reviewed to a small number of people, That's what I see. I think, that's the best way to see how the county's operating is at the county board level and at this meeting here. Not to take away from anybody that isn't on this meeting, but at the county board meeting, you get to everybody. And I think quarterly that we should probably be looking at these financials. So, especially on the big one.
Yeah, because I don't think it would take her that long to hit those big ones.
Well, and even just having visibility, so it's in the meeting notes for the county board or whatever. Then you can. It's hard to digest it all when someone's explaining it, but it gives you the opportunity to go back and look, and then if you got questions, you can come back and ask. You're not going to go line by line, but you're going to hit the high points. If you're making money, you're losing money, whatever the case may be. How close you are to budget. Them are the numbers we need to know pretty regularly, I would say. Because you can't say in October, well, we shouldn't spend this much money. You can make adjustments accordingly in some areas.
Further comments on Right now, that one, we're kind of talking about Pine Valley, what was the other one, Trish, you wanted?
20 parks.
County parks. County parks. Thoughts?
Well, it reports through Josh, right?
And Randy has kind of taken on the parks responsibility, so Randy's doing a lot of it now.
So, I mean, it's public works, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, that just makes sense. That, I mean, I realize that it's that meeting, we will move it to quarterly, but it meets as needed, and if it needed to be more often, we could go back. But to me, it makes sense that those are the people that are running it, to be able to be part of that committee. But
Other comments on parks, I agree with maybe quarterly, but it's basically under public works with Randy now anyway, correct? And was with Fair at one time, right, Mr. Seaver? Yeah, 3-4 years ago, probably.
Originally was a commission, and remember it was those working committees, so before we had employee interest in wanting to do all the work at the parks, it was that committee that did most of that, had the mowing done and maintenance.
Okay. Is that enough information for you?
So remove Pine Valley and quarterly for parks, so that's what parks meets right now is quarterly.
Okay, they already are meeting quarterly.
Yeah, they already are meeting quarterly.
But we were talking about rolling that in with Public Works. That was what I thought we were talking about.
It already does, it already reports to
Yeah,
board
it reports to
liaison.
them, just roll them in there, so it's only one instead of two separate.
Yeah. And then on the other end, we'll do have our finance director do like quarterly. Does that work for you guys as far as, I mean, it's not, we're not talking about committees, we're talking about reports basically, which maybe that would be another agenda item for next month.
Are you going to expand the public works to have more supervisors on that then? So more work going into it?
Right now, Public Works only meets quarterly because they have a lot of months where they don't have enough information, so I don't think we need to add more people right now.
It says here that Parks is a subcommittee and will report to Public Works Committee already, which we had to do. I think if we need to add any more county supervisors, it should be on the Health Committee. Whatever that one is now. So we call that one.
Community Health Services.
Yeah.
963.
Pine Valley, underneath that.
There's just a lot of programs through Health and Human Services that have requirements of the makeup of that committee. So if we're going to add, we're really going to have to kind of take a deep dive. I can look into that if that's what you guys want me
I
to do.
mean, you're just gonna have a small majority of supervisors now controlling 20 million, potentially, a little more.
Okay. Further comments, questions? Good with that? All right, let's move on to item 13, discussion of possible action on protocol for communication between our county administrator and the county board supervisors.
So this was a topic that was brought up at the full county board meeting. Dave asked me to have it added to executive and finance for you guys to talk about.
We had some concerns raised about certain things happening and we don't know about them. And the discussion we had in that topic was about, well, you know, is there a threshold? My thought was, maybe we just need better regular communication. And so I asked Trish if it would be feasible for her to send like a weekly update to all county board members. Tell us what's going on, so that we're all aware of it in between meetings, and if we have questions, we can reach out to her and get more details if we want. And so that's what I was thinking as far as maybe a starting place.
Two comments I have about that. Number one is, what are those things that you want me to report to you? And second, if it is reported in a committee meeting, like a public meeting, do you want me to re-report it to the group as a whole?
I think you should, because you know, some supervisors don't attend those public other committee meetings, and then you're kind of expecting them to go back and review that, and now you're looking at, us being, how much work do we do outside of sitting in this boardroom?
And that, in my opinion, that could be referenced in your report. See the minutes, if you want the full report, see the minutes from that committee. But
And so do you want a summary of what's happening in each of the standing committee meetings?
go ahead, Steve.
I guess what precipitated this was when there's some event in the county that's got people all excited and supervisors get calls and they don't know what's going on. That was the original thing that came up. To me, that's a judgment call. I mean, unfortunately.
And that's where I'm having a hard time with this and this discussion, because even looking back, I don't think I would have notified all of the board members of the water leaking at Copper Top. I found out, we talked about it in campus reconfiguration a couple of days after that. In my mind, it didn't rise to the level because I looked at that as operational. Same with our generator here in this building is going out. We're going to need to replace. I don't think it, to me, it doesn't rise to the level to send an email out to all saying, hey, we got to look to replace the generator in the building. And so that's where I'm wanting solid guidance from you on what is that information that you want me to report to you.
I think we do have to know that operational stuff, because that is our role. Each and individual county supervisor needs to know that stuff. That's how we make decisions, and that's how we interact with our constituents.
But the operational is administrator,
Right.
For
policy
you to operate
procedure.
it, but we need to understand what you're doing, operational wise. It's not that you're an operational, we don't need to know anything about it, because we still, at the end of the day,
And that's where it goes to the committees, so that's information that's going to
Right.
the committees. So like with the generator discussion, Randy talked about it at Public Works, he brought it up then at the county facilities. So that information's being shared up, so that's where I'm wondering, do we share to
Well,
all?
if you start sharing everything you do, you won't get anything else done. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Mr. Carroll.
Maybe coming at it from a different direction is reminding supervisors, when you get questions, refer them to our administrator for things like that. And you get a few more phone calls, but then that way, there's one voice speaking.
Can I respond?
What's that?
Can I respond?
Yes, sir.
The generator is an operational issue, right? That's natural. But there are some things that happen at different times in the county that reach the level of public response or public fear or anything that addresses the broader public. The two instances we mentioned, one was the E. coli in the water. That was a major health threat. So I think that one is much different than a generator operational issue. I also think the potential loss of a building like the Copper Top Theater reaches a level that it's beyond just a generator. That's a full building. And that's, I don't know how much that building was assessed at, but when that stuff happens, public opinion molds very quickly. So if we just look at those two issues, and if we look at something else, like a chemical spill at the highway shop, or just anything that would address public safety or public response, I think we do need something that the county board is notified before the observer is, and it's a headline, like it was this past week.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Another thing we did talk about, certain things that happen like that, there are press releases the county issued, which they did about the E. coli at Pine Valley. And another thing I asked Trish was, well, when one goes out, can that go to all county board members too? So that if the message is being distributed, we all get it. We might see it in the Observer, we might hear it on the radio, whatever, but we also get the copy that's the county is sending out to everybody, so we're aware of it. I know that's not a perfect response, but I think that would be good.
It just seems to be common sense to public elected officials, when something influences the broader public, should be informed prior to prepare themselves.
Mr. Carroll.
Well, one thing that may help us quite a bit is the new county website that's getting ready to roll out, with the ability to blast notifications with a lot easier and quicker way. Right now, our website it's not as easy to do that, but I'm told that we're going to be having this new website pretty soon, and maybe that'll be one way we get word out right quickly.
And that is one thing that I started doing in January, was doing a administrator
I've
update. Do those monthly, but that's where I'm asking, what do you guys want sooner? You know, I also put a monthly report into the, our full county board meeting. But again, that's where I need you guys to tell me what it is that you want me to report immediately.
And who judges, is it important enough for the immediate email, or is it down the scale where we can just put it in? Because what you might not think is important, somebody else might.
And that's where I need you guys to tell me what's important. That's where I need. If you tell me what's important and you guys give me the directive, I will do it. But I need those very clear guidance.
Mr. Carroll.
I guess, to me, two things. One is where there's been something that's gone on, or an event where it's going to change our budget projections for the year in some significant way. Or second, where you're going to need a quick decision from the board or a committee because of a change of situation. I don't think we need to be trying to respond to social media as soon as something happens. That gives it too much power, and we should just work on doing our job.
That's kind of like that example I gave the other night that they gave us down at the legislative conference. At 8 in the morning, there was a $4 billion cut in SNAP, and by 5 o'clock that night, it was restored. So this was coming from the National Counties Association president. He said that's why we have slowed down our responses, because now if they throw something out there and then it comes back in, now you got to throw another email out there. Most in the situations that they were explaining there, you know, they weren't going to change. They got better at Pine Valley, which we knew they would. It just takes time and testing and everything that was done properly. So, yeah, it's changing world for sure. But I don't know. Other thoughts? Mr. Cooley, any thoughts? Are you still there?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if you're gonna make a statement to the public, then we should know before the statement. I mean, that to me is one. You know, as far as operationally, I guess if you had a major, you know, something major happen, highway somewhere, Pine Valley, something like that, or the sheriff's department, you know, I would say something like that that's major that you have to react, you know, like the air conditioner's going out or something, that's gonna affect, okay, you gotta move everybody out of the jail, something to that extent.
That's where it's coming from.
The generator to me is probably not something that would need to be done. I mean, but if you have to make big changes in a hurry that affect the public or any of our, you know, the people in Pine Valley or the people in the Sheriff's Department or something along that line, I think that would be something that would call for that. It's a lot of it's a judgment thing, and as you get better and more time in your position, then judgments are going to be bigger and bigger, right? So what we may think is important when you're dealing with your job on a daily basis, it may not be as that level. So I would say anytime you gotta make a press release or anything that, like I said, I guess the jail thing, you know, like if we had to move a bunch of inmates because of some reason, something like that, but the other stuff, there's enough committees that hear it. We should be fine that way.
Derek, you got
Yeah, is it okay if I just provide some insight? Because I've kind of seen this process for a little while now. I've been up in that office with the previous 3 administrators. I was only in the chair for 4 months, so I can tell you that it is, you can start one day and have the other day, have an agenda created and have stuff you want to get done and have stuff blow up. And I think it's really hard to be in that administrator's chair because again, what is an emergency to some may not be to others. And it is really difficult to sometimes take 5 minutes to send a, put together a summary. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't communicate things, that's not it at all. But I think there needs to be a mutual level of understanding as the crisis can start, like Steve, that's a great example. A crisis can start at 8, it can be resolved by 4 because typically everything is shoved off the plate and you solve the crisis. And all of that can happen before you even get the chance to sit down and have lunch, have a 2-second window for air and get an email out. So I think just remember that this is like a constant, we have lots of fighters all of the time. Until you're sitting there and trying to be the firefighter and put them out, it's really hard to understand that. Again, not downplaying importance, but just know that crises can happen and they can be solved before you even get the chance to put an email out. So my recommendation would be, yeah, these are major things that are going to alter the continuity of operations for the county, then absolutely. Those should go out as a press release, and you all should know that. Beyond that, if you're getting calls from constituents, because I find this very funny, I will get calls from individuals who will ask everyone else but me about how elections work. And I get people that call me and say, well, I'm a subject matter expert on this because I talked to person X, Y, and Z, but you didn't come directly to the source. So I think you guys have similar situations like that where your constituents will call you, they'll ask you questions, and you may not know something because the administrator or any person within this crisis circle has had a chance to even send the email, because we do function, this county functions on very little staff. The administrator's office has very little support. It is the county administrator and then all the other individuals, but they're all doing their own thing. So if we're talking about having, that level and that depth of information being spread, then there needs to be more support in that office because one human simply can't do all of that. So if you have constituents call you and you haven't heard about it from the county administrator, then one, it hasn't risen to that level yet, or two, there just hasn't had time for a press release to go out because the one human who's the administrator hasn't had time to do that. So I would take those constituents' concerns, as you should, as the voice of their representation. And that's why they elected you, was to hear their concerns, take their information, let them know, hey, I don't have the answer to this, but I know someone who does. I'm going to take your concerns down. I'm going to follow up with the administrator as an email to make sure we got those, and then have them contact the administrator directly, because there are many times people don't call my office, and I really wish they would just call to talk to me, because I'm happy to give you that information. I will tell you whatever you need to know. So I think I just don't lose sight of that, because it may seem very easy to sit down and write a 5-minute press release, but you don't have time to do that sometimes. You have to deal with the problem and then have a solution to give that information out. So I just want to make that, like, it's really hard sometimes. And again, emergencies can look very different depending on who's receiving that information. And the more time, and I've seen this time and time again in this county with different administrators, with different functions. I mean, others have been in here around longer than me, so I'm sure you've seen the evolution of this county. So I think it's just something to not lose sight of. I'm not saying public, none of that's, I'm saying that's all very important, but managing expectations and coming up with some clear guidelines is most helpful to someone who's the administrator, because without that, it's very hard. It's very hard, so.
Thank you, very good, Darren. Comments, suggestions? You have some ideas? Go ahead, Mr. Turk.
Something Derek mentioned there kind of resonated. Continuity of operations. Does it impact the way the county does business?
Yes.
So, like the campus water pipes bursting, that's not an active building. There's nobody out there. So it didn't, if it happened here at the courthouse, oh my gosh, whole different situation, right? So as you look at and evaluate, okay, how big a difference does that make in the way the county runs? I think that's probably a good factor to consider, because if it happens in an active facility, more people are going to see it, more people are going to know about it and wonder what the heck's going on.
And more people will be affected by it.
Yeah, yep. And the Pine Valley E. coli thing definitely had effect on residents out there. And there was a press release, and so when that happens, yeah, should that go to all of us? I think so.
We'll continue to improve each and every month, week. Further comments? You think you have enough?
I think what I will do, if you guys are okay with it, is I will bring this back next month with it clearly laid out. From what I hear you're saying, lay it out so that we're all on the same page. Because I do worry this is something that could be used to set me up in the future. You were directed to do this, you didn't do it, when there's so much unknowns there. So that's what I would like to do based on the notes that I took, come back with that. And make sure that's what your guys' intention is.
I just would like you to understand though that the county board of supervisors are the final buck and the final say on everything that goes on in this county. So there needs to be a little bit more of communication because we are, I might just be the small little supervisor over here that's laying on a minor committee, but I'm still on the county board and I still need to hear because we all make this decision as a whole and we all need to be informed.
Yes, and I understand that, and I'm not trying to keep things from people. I'm just trying to clarify how to relay that information through committees, through emails. What is it that I'm supposed to do so that I am in compliance with my 21 boxes?
Are we caught up on that for now? Good enough? You're gonna bring it back? Works for me. All right, Mr. Kalish, any correspondence?
None to report.
None to report. Future agenda items. We're bringing back your last item and what other item were we?
Bring back 9, 10,
Salaries.
I'm
of-
sorry, 9, 11, 12, and 13.
Okay. Salaries of the sheriff, clerk of court, and the coroner. We're gonna work on, make sure you review your rules of the board. If you got some changes or ideas, bring them along. Or would you like them prior to the meeting, Mr. Taylor?
I'm sorry, what was that?
County board rules of the board, if they've got some ideas, you want them to bring them along or get them to you beforehand?
I don't want to speak for Administrator Clemens, but I do believe we would likely find that helpful. So if we're going to prepare any sort of, notations indicated in red or something, before would be advisable, please.
Okay. Or get them to me and I'll get them to them. All right. Any other future agenda items? Good? Good for now. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Item 16.
When's the next meeting? Time?
10,
10th March?
March 10th,
March 10th.
At 5?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock on March 10th. We would be adjourning till March 10th at 5 p.m. Motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Motion by Turk, seconded by Mr. Randy Schoonover. All those in favor of adjourning until March 10th at 5 p.m. signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? We stand adjourned.